There are many spellings of Blyly. Blyly, spelled B-L-E-I-L-E, is the original German spelling. There are several reasons for the changes. Some happened on Staten Island. Frederick Blyly changed his to make sure he got his Civil War pension. Plyly, with a P, was changed from Blyly with a B because they got in an argument and moved from Wakarusa area to LaGrange, Indiana, and changed the B to a P. They are the Blyly Candy Company. This Blyly history was done in honor of my mother, Effie Blyly, and all the history she saved and moved many times. This is the second album of 5 books. Dorothy Hosterman. A younger picture of the younger Frederick Blyly, who died in 1895. Frederick and Mary Blyly, with children left to right, William, Catherine, and Emmanuel. William Blyly is the son of Frederick and Mary Blyly. He was born in 1830. William married Catherine Frayne. Hello, although I don't think I ever met you, you probably have heard about me. I'm your sister Ruth's grandson through her daughter Beatrice. I heard that you have a fairly complete history of the Sigerfoos family and probably also the Blylys in the Lakes. In this letter, I'm including a chart of Ruth Naomi's and yours ancestry. Dear Aunt Effie, I know it sounds terrible to always be asking about our ancestors, but I keep on finding obscure information and facts that stir my curiosity. I had never before realized that so much of the family had lived around Elkhart since the 1850s. Last week, I thought I'd try to find records. Dear Aunt Effie, while I was doing research in the National Archives last week in Washington, D.C., I looked through a number of files that have stored there. One file contained many papers from Sarah Wanzer, whose I have enclosed in this letter a copy of one page of the 1870 census from Michigan. There you will see Richmond Lake and his family. This one happens to be very legible. Others can be really messy. Joe Ochberger's first wife. Tintype picture of Emmanuel Blyly. This is a later picture of Emmanuel, Catherine Blyly Ochberger, and William Blyly, who grew up around Locke. Joseph and Catherine Ochberger, with children William, Mary, and Joseph. Catherine Blyly Ochberger and husband Joe Ochberger. A son and grandchild of Catherine and Joe Ochberger. Joe Ochberger. Joseph Ochberger, age 77, died in his home today on West Beardsley Avenue in Elkhart. He was born in 1867 in Constance, Germany, and married Catherine Blyly in March of 1887 in Locke, Indiana. The Frederick Blyly Farm in Locke, Indiana. On the far left is William Blyly. On the far right is Catherine Blyly Ochberger. The Ochberger family. Standing in the back, left to right, William, Mary, and Lois. Seated, left to right, is Joseph Jr., Joseph Sr., Max, Kate, and Eldon. Bill Ochberger's son Gene and his family. Verna Elder, whose future husband was an Ochberger. Effie Whitmyer later worked for Verna, and so did Dottie. Left to right, Catherine Ochberger, Mary Ochberger, and Mary Warner Blyly, with a granddaughter in the middle. Emmanuel Blyly, born in 1866 and died in 1952. Sarah Mabel Blyly on the left, Vernon Otis Blyly on the right, Emmanuel Blyly in the center. Sarah Mabel Blyly with husband Frank Hess. Mary Ann Blyly, wife of Emmanuel Blyly. Mary Ann Blyly died in 1952 after an illness of 5 weeks of typhoid fever. Mabel Hess at the grave of her mother, Mary Blyly, together with son Eugene and her grandsons Phil and Fred, located at the Union Center Cemetery in Napanee. Grave marker of Frederick Blyly at the South Union Cemetery. The marker shows Frederick was a member of the Indiana Infantry in the Civil War. Grave marker of Mary Blyly in the same cemetery, with the picture taken in 1978. Grave marker of Mary Ann Blouser Stouter Blyly, wife of Emmanuel Blyly, and mother of Vernon and Mabel. Grave marker of Emmanuel Blyly and a second wife, Hetty Miller. This and the next three pictures were taken around 1915 of Vernon Blyly and unidentified friends. Vernon Blyly in 1912. Vernon Blyly with his sisters Mrs. Nancy Pippin, Mabel Hess, and Ella Reed on Thanksgiving 1942. Vernon Blyly in 1920. Vernon at the Westbrook and Metz Funeral Home in 1960. Vernon Blyly, indicated by the arrow, with the engine shop crew at Elkhart around 1915. Harold, Wilbur, and Ruth Blyly around 1921. Left to right is Harold, Hetty, Emmanuel holding Wilbur, with Ruth Blyly in the front, 1924. Wilbur in 1945. Louis Blyly's son Harold. This is Ruth Blyly, possibly at the time of her marriage to Henry Moneyheffer. Mrs. Henry Ruth Moneyheffer, age 38, died at her home in Napanee Wednesday evening after an illness of a year in 1956. She was a former Ruth Blyly, born in Napanee in 1918. Charles Hess at left, officer of the Historical Society of Elkhart County. Charles was Emmanuel Blyly's grandson. Emmanuel and Hetty Miller Blyly. This picture was probably taken about the time of their marriage in November 1905. The George Blyly homestead in the early 1900s near Napanee, Indiana. In the lower right-hand corner, seated left to right, is John Blessing, Clayton Blessing, and George Blyly. John Jacob Blyly, born in Germany in 1828, brother of Frederick Blyly from Locke in Elkhart. This is the Blyly family that became the Plyly family, with a P, the candy makers. Ludwig Frederick, who married Mary Warner. He was born in 1795 and immigrated in 1830. George Michael, born in 1815. Andrew Blyly, who immigrated in 1865. He married Magdalena Stolly. John Jacob, who married Mary Ann Holdred. The Blyly reunion in August of 2001. Left to right, Dottie, Lois Blyly, Edward Blyly. Coming back on the right, Norma Blyly, Dawn Blessing, Berthella Stevens, Marie Stevens, Keith Eugene Weed, descendant of John Jacob Blyly. Hi Aunt Effie. Enclosed are several copies of records I found out about Abraham Sigerfoos, William Blyly's parents, Frederick Blyly and Mary Warner. I found them in the pension and military records in the National Archives. Mark Ammons, June 1980. Andrew and Magdalena Blyly. Andrew was born in 1838 in Germany, and he married Magdalena. She died in 1876, only 33 years old. He died at age 40. They were survived by 3 small children. Ezra Blyly, born in Napanee in 1874, was an ordained deacon at the Napanee Mennonite Church. Polly Staley Lance in the front, with Ella Blyly Peppinger behind and to the left, and Della Blyly Moyer behind and to the right. Ezra Blyly on the far right. Levi Edgar and Lavina Ella Blyly Peppinger. Ella Blyly was a daughter of Andrew and Magdalena Staley Blyly. Mabel Blyly Yoder's children, Ruby and Richard Hendrick. Brother and sister, Elsie Blyly Albion and Devon Albion. Front row left to right, Dorothy Carmody, Arlene Truex, and Susie Miller. Back row, Lily Miller, Charlie Miller, Max Miller, Clyde Truex, and Kenneth. Father and daughter, John Blyly and Arlios Wertinger. The Don Miller family, left to right, front row, Valerie Neff, Brian Neff. Middle row, Sally Miller, Kim Miller, holding baby, Serene Miller. Back row, Jeff Miller, Gary Neff, Vicky Neff. Maxine and Gerald Blyly. Children and grandchildren of Maxine and Gerald Blyly. This is Napanee's Main Street in 1876. Children played in the dirt street or climbed the stairs to the second-story schoolroom located above the saloon in the far right picture. This is the school where the children of John Jacob and Andrew Blyly went. Called the Cable School, it was located in Kosciuszko County, 2 miles southeast of Napanee. These children attended the Cable School, pictured here in 1911. Highlighted are various members of the Blyly, Yoder, Holloway family. The Hall School, located near the Cable School and looking nearly identical. John Jacob Blyly in his German uniform. He and his wife came to this country in 1874 with 3 small children. They had 3 more children in the U.S., born in the log cabin in which they lived. Wife Rosa Breyer Blyly was born in Germany in 1844. The house and barn where John, Jacob, and Rosanna Blyly lived, southeast of Napanee. Jesse and Ada Hostetler Blyly, married in 1906. Children are Blanche and Glenn. A later picture of the Hostetler family. Blyly reunion 1912. Left to right, Catherine Frayne, mother of Mary Warner Blyly, Kate Blyly, granddaughter, Fred Blyly, oldest son of John Jacob, and William Blyly. Louis and Olive Blyly, with son Harold and daughter Mary. Louis and Olive were married in 1901. 5 of the 6 children of John Jacob and Rosanna Blyly. In the back row are Sophia and Rosina Caroline. Front row is George Lewis, Jesse, and Fred. Jacob Holloway family. Front row left to right, Jacob, Clarence, Mary in the middle, Lewis, and Sophia. Back row is Ethel, Fred, John, and Lily. This is Wilma Blyly in 1933, the youngest daughter of Fred Blyly and granddaughter of Jacob and Roseanne Blyly. Left to right is Jessie Blyly, Carolyn Blyly, Sophia Blyly, and Louis Blyly. Sophia and Jacob Holloway. Carolyn Blyly Yoder. Louis, Carolyn, Sophia, and Jesse Blyly. Lee Blyly, brother of Clarence, and sons of George Michael Blyly. Lee Blyly is indicated by the arrow on this photo taken at the Cops Hotel in Napanee, Indiana. Leander or Lee Blyly is indicated by the arrow in this photo of World War I veterans taken in 1932. Herman Blessing. Clayton Blessing, brother of Herman, in this class picture taken in Napanee in 1907. Enos Locks married Eliza Jane Blyly in 1889. Enos died in 1940, Eliza in 1939. They had children Ida, Harvey, John, Pearl, Mary, George, and Agnes. Eliza and Enos Locks, with children Harvey on the left and Ida on the right. The Locke children in 1906, left to right and front to back, Ida, George, Pearl, Mary, John, and Harvey. The Blyly Candy Store in LaGrange, Indiana. Blyly's candy business started in 1917 when Rilla Blyly set a plate of freshly made fudge on the counter of her husband Milo's store. The fudge sold so quickly that Rilla and Milo made other kinds, and in 1921 they sold their store to devote their time full-time to candy making. Effie Blyly Whitmyer had stated in the late 20s that one of her father's relatives who lived in Lake had gotten angry at his relatives, the Blylys, with the B, and changed his name to Blyly with the P. They subsequently moved to LaGrange, where they got into this candy business. Willard and Oshana Blyly purchased this home in the 1940s. Milo Blyly is indicated by the arrow in this photo taken in Napanee. Jack Blyly working an 85-pound slab of hard candy before sending it to the cutting machine. Ella Sigerfoos, born in 1874, died in 1950. Ella married William Blyly. William went to school in Locke, Indiana, and then also taught there. This is William Blyly's graduation picture, taken in 1889 at age 19. This is William's commencement program. And William's diploma. Elkhart, Indiana, looking north on Main Street in 1884. Main Street was just about to be paved with cedar blocks in this picture of 1888, just 2 years after streetcar tracks had been laid. Ella Mae Sigerfoos, the second born of Creighton and Sarah Jane. Ella married William Blyly in 1893. William Blyly was born in 1870 and died in 1950. Together, he and Ella Mae had the following children: Effie, Ruth, Grace, Lloyd, Russell, Robert, and Edith. This is Effie Blyly, the firstborn of William and Ella Sigerfoos. In this picture taken in 1895 at the age of 4 months. William and Ella Blyly in 1897, taken with children Effie at the top and Ruth. Effie was 3, Ruth was 1.5. William and Ella lived in this house from 1899 to 1900 in Elkhart, Indiana on Edwardsburg Street. Left to right is Ruth, Effie, and Grace with Lloyd Blyly in the chair, in this picture taken in the winter of 1902. Christmas 1906, Ruth age 10, Grace age 7, Effie 11, and Lloyd 4. In this photo taken of the Cleveland Public Schools in 1906, Grace is circled on the left. Effie has a square in the back, with Ruth with a triangle on the right. This is where Effie Blyly attended school in Cleveland Township in 1902. Effie and Ruth Blyly on Edwardsburg Avenue. This is her home on Edwardsburg Avenue in Elkhart, Indiana, where Ella and William Blyly lived in 1899 to 1900. Effie Blyly at age 6 in 1900. Effie's first grade class at Weston School. Effie is circled in the last row on the back left. William Blyly, Dear Sir, yours at hand. Yes, the little editors are after me. Quote, Let the heathen rage and the people inquire a vain thing. End quote. My challenges are as follows. 1. Resolved, that the liquor traffic is a crime worse than counterfeiting, stealing, or murder. Dr. W. H. Bowles, Evangelist and Lecturer, March 1902, from the Committee for National Prohibition Rally at the International Convention of the Church of Christ. In this picture of the first school building in Crystal City, Texas, Effie Whitmyer is indicated by the arrow in the back row, with Pearl Hammond indicated in the front center right, with Brother Ben Hammond in the far right. This is the year of the Great Flood, so before Mama, Ruth, and Grace, my sisters, and Lloyd and Russell, my brothers, and I took off for the sunny Southland in Crystal City, Texas, and said goodbye forever, we fondly hoped, to ice and snow, we went to town to see how they coped with the river. How we got to town, since we had sold our horses and buggy, and Papa had preceded us to Crystal City, our ultimate goal, I don't remember. But we saw people who lived on Lincoln and Washington streets traveling by boats instead of walking or riding. Effie Whitmyer, April 1908. The Blyly family in Crystal City, Texas. Ella and William are on the right with Grace. Russell is on Ella's lap. Lloyd is in front on the left. Crystal City, Texas, 1908 through 1911. In this school picture, the arrows indicate left to right, Effie Blyly, Ruth, and Grace. While in Crystal City, William Blyly worked on the railroad, pictured here on the left. In this picture, taken in the summer of 1910 in Crystal City, Texas, Effie is pictured at the back. Then left to right, Grace, Russell, and Ruth. Lloyd is in the front. This is a souvenir of Chicago, Illinois in 1909 when Aunt Cynthia worked there. William Blyly in the back, on the job at the railroad in Crystal City. This was taken in 1910. Della Grimes and party on Sherman Street in Elkhart. Members of the Blyly family picnicking, possibly in Crystal City, Texas. Effie at age 16 in 1910 in Crystal City. A postcard sent to great Aunt Cynthia from the Blylys in Texas. Left to right is Lloyd, 9 years old, and Russell, 2 years old. Effie and Grace Blyly on the left with Della Grimes. Grace, Effie, and Ruth Blyly. Ruth, Effie, and Grace Blyly. This is the Elkhart Carriage and Motor Car Company factory in 1916 or 17. William Blyly is pictured in the center in the background. Effie Blyly. Effie with Robert Blyly in 1913. Effie was born in 1894. Robert in 1912. Effie Blyly as a young girl. She was sickly. They lived in Ola, Arkansas before moving to Elkhart, Indiana. In this photo taken in front of their house on Franklin Street is top left to right, Ella, Effie, and Ruth. Bottom left to right, Russell, Lloyd, and William Blyly. Robert Blyly, the fifth child of William and Ella. He was born in 1912. This is Effie and her younger brother Bob at their house on Fulton Street in Elkhart, where they lived in 1916. This is the same house in more recent years. Descendants of Frederick and Mary Blyly and his sister, Mrs. Minnie Davis, taken on the occasion of Mrs. Kate Auchberger's 50th birthday in 1914. Ruth and Effie and Clarence Booty and Grace Blyly. Della Grimes, Alice Clausen, Effie Blyly, and Cynthia Kaiser. All the Sigerfoos cousins in 1914. Left to right, Ralph Kaiser, Bob Blyly, Milton Porball, Russell Blyly, Howard Porball, Clarence Maxwell, Maurice Porball, Grace, Ruth, and Effie Blyly, and Donald Maxwell. Edith Blyly at 3 months, who was born in 1916 and drowned in 1918 in the St. Joseph River. Bob and his birdhouses. This house was built by William and Ella Blyly with Creighton's help in 1921. It's located on Riverview. The girl is June Davis. Death came suddenly to Mr. Frederick Blyly. For some time he had been the victim of heart disease and had the habit of getting up in the night. Last night he did the same and went out of doors for a breath of air. He went to the cupboard after coming in and took a dose of medicine, then sat down in his chair. His wife was aroused by a groan, and before she could reach him, he had passed away. Elkhart Daily Review, 1895. Elmas Atkins and Ruth Naomi Blyly, married, 1922. Beatrice, Ruth Blyly, and Elmas Atkins, 1928 to 1930. Carolyn Atkins, around 1930. Carolyn and Beatrice Atkins. Aunt Ruth Blyly Atkins, when she was sick and stayed part-time at their Lafferty Lake cabin, Catsopolis. She died in 1948. Thomas Rosenbaum, son of Carolyn Atkins and Al Rosenbaum, born 1951. Elmas Atkins and his second wife, Pearl. Joshua Joseph Ronenbaum. Thomas Ronenbaum, son of Carolyn. He was born in 1952. Katie Ronenbaum, daughter of Bruce and Cindy Ronenbaum. Bruce is son of Carolyn, grandson of Ruth Blyly. Ruth Blyly. This is also Ruth. Grace Blyly and her first husband Floyd Eckert. They had 3 children, Betty Marie, Alice Jane, and William Hale. Floyd with his children, Betty Marie, Alice Jane, and William Hale. Floyd was a good friend and army buddy with Elmas Atkins and Grant Whitmyer. Roger and Alice Jane Eckert Smith. William Eckert and Maud with Billy and David. Five generations with Grace Eckert, Betty Eckert, Sarah Jane Lake Sigerfoos, Ella Sigerfoos Blyly with Penny. Grace Blyly Evans. Shelley and Thomas Smith, children of Mr. and Mrs. Roger Smith. A 15-minute sermon delivered from the witness stand to justify his position as an objector to military service failed to impress Judge Thomas Slick in the United States District Court, so Roger Smith of Elkhart, who claims to be a minister of the Jehovah's Witnesses, must spend the next 3 years in the federal penitentiary. Grace Blyly Eckert and Ralph Evans. Left to right, Grant Whitmyer with daughter Berthella. Ruth Blyly Atkins with her daughter Beatrice. Left to right in the back row is Grace Blyly Eckert and Ella Sigerfoos Blyly. The front row is Betty Eckert Hathaway and Sarah Jane Lake Sigerfoos. Penelope Hathaway is the child. Lloyd Blyly and family. Lloyd Blyly, pictured here as a young man, was born in 1902. He worked for the Kahn Company. 4 generations, standing as Larry on the left, then Lloyd, seated as William Blyly, holding Steve. Taken in 1954. Lloyd Blyly, operator of a wholesale and retail bait business, died when his tractor overturned on him in a pond as it was traveling uphill. What to me is one of the nicest tributes that could be paid a man was voiced this week about Lloyd Blyly by Harold Walker when he said, "A lot of people are going to miss that man." Newspaper article by Jack Sinclair. When a neighbor was pinned under an upset tractor for an hour and a half, Mrs. Berthella Stevens got an idea that may save other tractor operators' lives someday. She suggested the tractors be equipped with sirens that shriek. Lloyd and Mary Miller Blyly. Here's a powerhouse in Hartford, Michigan, where Lloyd worked. Left to right, Larry, Lois, Debbie, and Steve, 1957 to 58. The same family in 1970. Debbie Blyly, maid of honor for Steve and Gail Blyly, with Lois and Larry, 1980. Elizabeth Sigerfoos with Mary Miller Blyly and dog Laddie. Mary was married to Lloyd Blyly. Russell Blyly was born in July 1907. He's pictured here feeding a piglet on the Blyly farm in Cassopolis, Michigan. Russell and Evelyn Gordon Blyly, 1950 to 1952. Russell Blyly in church, top left, 1962. Wednesday was a holiday for almost 50 federal press employees who spent the day at the National Machine Tool Builders Show in the amphitheater in Chicago. Attendees included Russell Blyly, pictured front and center. Robert Blyly and wife Gladys Osborne Blyly. To this marriage came 4 boys, Edward, Norman, Donnie, and Gary. Robert as a young boy. Robert's 4 children, left to right, Edward, Ronald, Gerald, and Norman. Mr. and Mrs. Edgar Emma Osborne of Cassopolis on the 50th wedding anniversary in 1964, Bob's in-laws. The lazy man's fence is what Robert Blyly calls the 50-foot fence he built to divide his barnyard. He started to dig holes, but the ground was so hard he gave up and did this. One man was fatally injured in accidents over the weekend. Robert Blyly, 29, of Cassopolis, died several hours after his automobile and a truck collided at an intersection in Cass County. According to officers who investigated the accident, the Blyly car failed to observe a stop sign. At left is Ronald Blyly Jr., grandson of Robert Blyly. Dennis Blyly, who led Northridge High School to a 29-15 basketball record over 2 seasons from his point guard position, was awarded an athletic scholarship to Grinnell College in Grinnell, Iowa. Little Edith Blyly with her mother Ella Sigerfoos Blyly. Edith drowned in the St. Joe River in Elkhart at age 2. Edith in a horse carriage. Edith just before her death.